Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey guys, every Wednesday, I'm going to be hosting a live online event sharing my biggest lessons in an action-packed presentation designed to help you go from where you are now to where you want to be. I'm helping men break through their biggest limiting beliefs to create the life they want. Plus, after the presentation, I'm going to do an open Q&A where I answer all of your questions. To register for my next event, go to kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. Register now before the event fills up. Hope to see you there. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Mike Fitch. He's the founder of Global Bodyweight Training and the Animal Flow movement. So excited to learn more about this, all this is, and how it can help us men. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
All right, Mike, let's dive in now with a favorite success quote, some sort of saying that you live by, and how it's helped you.
Yeah, so one of my favorites is you must suffer through the structure in order to conquer the chaos. And that really what that goes back to is just the idea of anytime that you want to learn something, you want to eventually become a master of something, anytime that you want to experience something new, you have to go through and build the foundation, and you have to go through and learn and really pay attention to all the little meticulous steps along the way. That way, whenever you do get into a situation, which is the chaos, which may be life or maybe flow, maybe exercise, maybe presentation, whatever it may be, you've put in the time, and then you can use that experience to then thrive. And so that's always the thing is suffer through the structure in order to conquer the chaos.
And is the structure the foundations? What is the structure exactly?
Yeah, the structure is the foundations. It's the education part. It's the building of the knowledge. It's the research. It's whatever it may be. Whenever you're going towards a task or towards a goal, it's just putting your time in. That's really what it comes to. Do
you think that people want the structure to be fun and easy, and when they often hit that structure and find out that it's chaotic and there's a lot of uncertainty, that it pushes them away?
Well, I think, especially now, man, I think we're kind of at a time where everyone has or wants that instant gratification. And right. I think a lot of times that those initial steps of building the foundation and gathering the experience is just so easily just skipped over. And, especially in my world, when we're talking about some kind of high skill movements or exercises or whatever, people want to learn how to do something and they just want to go and do that thing. And they don't realize that there's sometimes years of practice and experience that needs to go in before you achieve some of these results. And so that's always my thing. It's just like, man, you've got to earn every single step along the way. And I think that's lost a lot of times.
Do you believe in Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours?
100%. 100%. And we see that all the time, man. And whether it's with my other instructors that work with us in our companies or with other people that are wanting to get into more skill-based exercise, I think it's 100% that you have to put in the time. And honestly, man, whenever we work with some of our guys, we'll work with them pretty extensively for a couple of years. And it's not until, they've spent 3 to 5 years with the program or with the practice that they're like, oh, I'm really starting to understand it now. And that's so common, as I think that you have to put the time to even start to get to that level of, mastery. And mastery is a tricky word because true mastery, I think you're always working towards, you never really achieve it.
Right,
so
right.
It's one of those things where you definitely have to put in the time, and then your understanding of that thing just gets deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I think a misconception about the 10,000 hour rule, because it sounds painful, right? If I'm just like, yeah, you can do it, but it's going to take 10,000 hours. And considering you're going to put in like 6 or 8 hours a day, 10,000 hours is a long way, but it doesn't take 10,000 hours to get results. You can get results, within 100 hours or 200 hours, but mastery, I believe in the 10,000 hours. I have heard also that you said, mastery, it's never ending. Like you're basically a student for life, and it's kind of like a circle, or it's not like a straight line to the top, but a circle that once you reach the 10,000 hours or become a black belt, so to speak, you become a white belt again and you start over. It's like it's just a never ending journey where you're constantly learning. It's like the journey has just begun once you've become a master.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes back to that old Bruce Lee saying the punch is just a punch, a kick is just a kick.
Which one is that? Is that the full quote?
Well, it's definitely deeper than that, but basically, to kind of paraphrase it, basically, when you first start martial arts, you're saying, a punch is just a punch, a kick is just a kick. Then whenever you really start to understand it, you realize that there are so many more pieces that go into that. There's so much technique. There's so much learning. There's so much time. And then whenever you really, truly start to understand it, it goes back to the simplicity of, again, a punch is just a punch, a kick is just a kick. So it kind of gives you that full circle way of looking at things where it's like, as a beginner, this is how you perceive this thing. Then as a true student, once you're in it, and then once you actually start to truly understand it and master it, you realize that the simplicity comes back around.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, Bruce Lee I think all of his quotes will just spin your head. Every single one is great.
That's actually kind of a reworking of a Buddhist philosophy. Okay. So I think he kind of took that and did a little bit working. Yeah, that's basically what his whole thing is, his whole Jeet Kune Do. So let's say I'm a guy who's listening to something like this, and I'm just like, well, why? Why should I dedicate myself to something? Why not just enjoy my life? I'm doing just fine. I'm not really a master at anything, but I'm enjoying my life, and I just, I'm just, entertainment, football, sports, just kind of enjoying what I've got. Maybe I have family and kids. Like, why should I dedicate myself to 10,000 hours to something and put up with the sacrifice and pain of that? That's a great question. And I think, honestly, Andrew, I think only the person who's on that journey can answer that. But I can say that whenever you decide to go into something like that, and actually, have you ever heard of the book, The Talent Code?
Yeah.
Daniel Coyle?
Yeah. I have it behind me.
Oh, great. So, in that book, he talks about a couple of different things where he goes around to all these different hotbeds of super talent. And he does a lot of research and a lot of observing to see what is the common thread throughout all these different places or these different athletes or musicians or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. And he finds out that there are a couple of things. One is ignition. So what is the thing that made that person want to take this journey? And for some people, it was because their favorite idol was a soccer player, or maybe their favorite grandparent gave them this instrument that they always wanted to learn how to play, or, maybe their ignition was they wanted to be rich and famous, whatever it may be. There had to be the ignition that started the desire and started the passion. Then the second thing is there had to be their ability to deep practice. He calls it deep practice. And what he means by that is it means that it's not just repetition. So you're not just going in and, we always hear practice makes perfect, but it's more complex than that. So it, goes back to that, the whole, new saying, which you hear quite a bit now, which is perfect practice makes perfect, because it's not just about doing the thing, but it's actually about doing the thing just outside of your current abilities. So you're practicing a movement or you're practicing a skill that's just on the cusp, that's just beyond your reach. And when you can't make it or you can't do it consistently, then you take the moment and you create a strategy. You figure out what you're doing to then rework it and actually hit that goal. And then that plus repetition plus 10,000 hours or plenty of time or whatever the time frame may be.
And there's coaching, and he talks about coaching or mentorship.
Exactly. So you take all of those components, and it's just the passion, the ignition. What is it that keeps this person wanting to do it? And then two, their ability to deep practice or figure out if they cannot do this, what is the strategy that they need to rework, and then spend multiple hours upon hours greasing that groove, practicing that thing. And then once they hit that with complete certainty, then their reach just goes a little bit further. Yeah. And so to kind of go back to your original question, I don't know what's going to make someone want to get into something like that, but I can tell you what usually keeps someone into something like that is the feeling of accomplishment that they get with that thing that cannot be compared to anything else in their life. And just to kind of bring an example of what I do into the situation, and
Sure.
I'm sure we'll get into this more, but I'm really into calisthenics or high skill body weight training. And I always tell people, you may forget whenever you added 5 pounds to your bench press, but you'll never forget the day that you performed your first handstand or your first muscle up in body weight training or push up or whatever that thing may be, that thing that in your mind seemed absolutely unattainable at some point, you're now able to accomplish. And that excitement and that ignition, that you never forget that. And so I think it's one of those things where there has to be the initial thing that puts you on your journey, but then all those little accomplishments in between that are just take you so far outside of your normal experience in day-to-day life. That's what keeps you in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, talking about that ignition right there, it could be so many things. Like it could be someone who grew up poor, or like a girl broke up with the guy and he went on this journey to improve himself, or maybe get in better shape, or, improve his social skills, what have you. So you're right on that. Like I feel like the ignition will be different for each person, and that'll be the catalyst for him to pursue such a journey.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. It's so pure, but then also the ignition may change, right? So as the journey continues, maybe something else is what continues to fuel you, or it switches, or, you lose sight and then you come back. And, there's just, man, it's such a complex, but just really amazing process to watch someone go through that.
Yeah. Have you read Mastery? Not Robert Greene, but George Leonard's version of Mastery?
No.
Okay. Well, inside that book, he talks about how what really prevents people from achieving mastery is the plateau, which is where you were making a lot of progress when you first started. Like anyone who starts working out and they never work out they'll just start dropping weight and start seeing definition very quickly. But after a certain period of time, you start to plateau and the same things just aren't working anymore. What advice do you have for those who are inside of some sort of plateau, whether it be, let's say they could be in sales, it could be they're trying to improve their health, or even their dating life, whatever, where they just feel like they're not making any more progress, and it's just like, how do you get through that and break through the plateau?
Yeah, there are a couple of different ways I always kind of like to hit on this subject. One of them is expectations, right? So it's taking a very good look at our expectations. And just like you had said, sometimes, look, our bodies are adaptation machines. And as its innate desire to sustain life, it will learn how to adapt to anything that's consistent. And that's what all of exercise is based upon, right? So that's why in the beginning of an exercise program, you'll usually see results very quickly as your body begins the adaptation process. But then also in the first couple weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, usually they say a lot of those changes are neuromuscular, and you're actually becoming neuromuscularly more efficient at a task. So you're getting stronger, quicker. But then you also have the physiological changes of dropping weight and, all those great things that come along with exercise. But anyway, you're looking at the perception of the time. So whenever we have someone that's wanting to get to one of these high skill exercises in my world, we see them get to the point where they're putting in, let's say, 6 months, and they realize that their progress has been pretty steady up to a certain point, and then they start to plateau. And now whenever that happens, there are lots of strategies that we can do to help them break through that plateau, but then they really have to take a step back and look at their perception, their goals, and their timeline. So we say, okay, if you wanted to achieve this goal or acquire this skill, what was your idea coming into it about how long it was going to take you to achieve this thing? And then once you actually started, how does that change over time? Because you realize whenever you're actually in it, your idea of how long it was going to take you can completely change. And so we always like to remind them, whenever you're in it, to step back and say, okay, you've spent, 6 months trying to achieve this goal? Fantastic. You have literally the rest of your life. And that goes into a much bigger idea and philosophy that we always work with, which is the longer that you spend in your body, I'm a true believer that every day you spend in your body, you should be a little bit better at it and know a little bit more about it. So we always try to get them to rework that perception of what is the timeline and why is that realistic in their world, considering that they have the rest of their life to learn how to use their vessel, their body. And plateaus are something that we all deal with, and there's something that's temporary. So if a plateau happens, yes, we have strategies to help them through that, but we always try to go to the side of what is your perception of how long this thing was going to take you, and what's the rush?
Yeah. What's the rush?
Exactly.
I think that's like, why not? Why does it have to be so soon?
Exactly. So why does it have to be so soon? And then that brings in the frustration, then that brings in the psychological component, then that brings in all those other things.
It does. Yeah.
And you get to see where nothing is just physical, nothing is just mental, nothing is just it really is all of those things. And so you can't just take a purely physical approach to learning and exercise. There has to be all these different things that are the restorative process, is their ability to regenerate, their ability to breathe. Are they using some sort of meditative practice or some sort of practice that allows them to get time back to replenishing all of their buckets? It's not just purely physical. The physical part, we're like I said earlier, we're designed to adapt. The stimulus just has to be constant. It's all these other things that play factors that we don't spend as much attention or time on. How are they coming in after a fight with their girlfriend? Are they not sleeping well? How's their nutrition?
Yeah.
There's too many factors to just say, oh, okay, you're going to be on this ascending ladder and every day you're going to get better. I wish it were that way, but it's just not the case. There are too many other things that we have to bring into the equation. And so I think a big part of teaching someone how to get to a plateau is have them look at all of the factors. So, hey, it's not just physical. You have to look at all these other factors. Are you getting enough rest? Is your body being able to recuperate and regenerate? There's so much there. And I think a plateau is a great opportunity for you to talk about just how extensive and expansive and how beautifully complicated the human body is.
Yeah. When you said it's much more than the physical, I brought up, I'm reading this book. It's like a Navy SEAL book. And they say like getting through BUD/S, it's really just 90% mental, 10% physical. And like guys are always, coming in looking real buff and strong. But if their mental capacity isn't there, then they're likely to, it's not always the big, strongest guy who wins is what they're saying.
Man, there's so much truth to that. And, you'll see now, especially now as of recently, you'll start to hear a lot more people talking about this, and you'll start to read a lot more literature on it. But the new philosophy, or actually it's not new, it's completely old, it's just starting to be reimagined and regurgitated, is that there just is no separation between mind and body. We spend so much time working to diagnose and fix and do all these things with the human body, but we forget, or at least we separate the mind completely. And I'm not talking about brain, I'm talking about mind, as you know. And the two are just inseparable. It's always one. And so if you have the physical part, but you lack the mind or the attention to mind and what you believe in and your ability to persevere and endure, it's just you're setting yourself up for failure if you're not addressing the entire system.
Yeah. You've got such a wealth of knowledge here. Talk about how you got started with what you do with global bodyweight training and like the flow and the animal movements. What is this? How would this help someone in their lives?
Yeah, cool. So let's see. So Andrew, I started in the fitness industry when I was 18 years old. I started as a personal trainer, and I had always been in fitness, or at least working out, like with my friends and with my dad. That was kind of our way to bond. And once I got into the fitness industry, I was working for a really great gym chain when I was living in New York City. And that gym, among any others, that's actually Equinox, put so much time and effort into bringing great speakers in and increasing the knowledge of their trainers. So that kind of set the tone for my entire career. And so I was obsessive about gathering information about different modalities, different training styles, following different quote unquote gurus in the fitness industry. And I went through kettlebells, Olympic lifts, became a medical exercise specialist. So really got into pre-post rehab, got into sports specific training, all these different styles. And I eventually found myself where most guys do, which is I just wanted to build as much muscle and put on as much, pack on as much muscle as possible. And I was doing a lot of strength and hypertrophy work. And I was about 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And man, I can tell you, I just didn't feel good inside of my body. And as much as I knew about proper periodization and programming, I just felt like, man, if I feel this way at 30 years old, this was about 6 years ago, how am I going to feel when I'm 50, 60 years old? Right, and that whole concept of to train to last really started to resonate with me. And so I thought, man, okay, so let me do something different and let me put down the weights altogether and maybe just start exploring body weight only disciplines. So I put down the weights and got into gymnastics, which led to parkour, free running, which led to breakdancing, which led to circus arts and hand balancing. And man, my mind was completely blown. One, because I wasn't nearly as athletic as I thought that I was. And I had spent so much time working on my body over the years, but I had very little ability to work my body. And so my control, my connection to my body, all of those things were it was surprising to me how minimal they were. So I was inspired. My ego was trashed, and I started putting the pieces together. And so taking my knowledge of what I knew about how the body works, anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, all those things, taking those with my new experience and started putting the pieces together. I first started with a company I call Global Bodyweight Training. And basically all I would do there is create tutorials on bodyweight training, exercises that either other fitness enthusiasts would really enjoy or other trainers may be able to teach to their clients. So that was the start of kind of this whole phase of my life. So I started Global Bodyweight Training. As I was designing that, I was taking some of my experience from the different bodyweight disciplines and started putting the pieces together. And that's where Animal Flow came from. And Animal Flow, it's a movement-focused discipline that's designed to reconnect your body to itself through the floor. And so everything that you do in Animal Flow is hands and feet in contact with the ground. So there are some animal components, and I did take the animal components from some of the other disciplines that I experienced. I'm always the first one to say, look, I didn't create animal movements. They've been around for thousands of years. All I did was take different animal movements and say, okay, how can I use my experience with corrective exercise and with anatomy and all these things and figure out how we can act like animals to improve the function of the human animal? So how can we tweak these basic animal movements to improve the functional capacity of the human animal? So that was kind of the animal component. And the animal component is really, it's just an excuse for us to move every joint every way in every direction every single day if you choose, because that, in my opinion, is such an important rule. It's like, all right, so we need to break out of what your body normally does and experience movements diversity or load variability. So instead of just saying, okay, hey Andrew, move every one of your joints in every way every single day, I can say, hey man, act like a beast, act like an ape, act like a crab, let's mimic these animals. I'll give you very specific details on how to use them, and then now you're utilizing your body as a global unit. So everything's communicating, everything's talking. The other part of that is the flow component. And so if you look at, as you know, there's flow in everything. There can be flow in conversation. There can be flow in music and art. We're talking about how the body flows. And so how the body communicates and translates energy. And when I say that, I not only mean how it communicates and translates energy internally to an output, so it would be the floor, but also how do your hips communicate with your shoulders through your spine? How does the contact with the ground and the feedback mechanisms that are sending and receiving information from your feet from the ground up through your leg and out to your extremities through your arms? How is your spine stabilizing when both your hands and your feet are in contact with the same object? So really the big thing about the flow component in Animal Flow is it's all about communication. And I'm a firm believer that if we can make your body a better communicator, then we can make your ability to navigate your vessel or your body through life that much more efficient and that much better.
So what does this look like? How do I do these movements in my day-to-day life? Am I running like a bear to work, or what does this look like? Am I doing this at a gym, or do I say like, hey, I'm going to do 30 minutes of Animal Flow, or is this like a part of my life now? Like, I'm trying to picture that, because you said my hands and arms are on the floor here.
Yeah. So that's a great question, man. And really, the way that you practice Animal Flow it's different for every single person. And so just to give you a little bit of information on how we kind of run our business is basically we do an education model to where we teach workshops. So we have about 15 master instructors all over the world that they can teach animal flow workshops. And so if you're a fitness professional, or if you just really want to learn more about animal flow, you can come in and take a workshop. However, if you're not a fitness professional, you just can't become a certified instructor. So anyway, you come in, you take the workshop. In the workshop, we teach you all the animal flow movements. From there, you have to go through a process of testing out. Whenever you test out and you're an animal flow instructor, then you can teach it either in group fitness classes, or you can teach it one-on-one, or we see if you're a chiropractor or physiotherapist, anything like that, we see a lot of them integrated into their own practice, or if you're a yoga practitioner or teacher, we see it integrated into their yoga classes. So basically, once you go and take, let's say, animal flow from an instructor, it may be a one-on-one session. So we may see that someone goes in and they do a one-on-one animal flow session with a coach. Or maybe someone comes in to work with their personal trainer, and their personal trainer has now learned animal flow techniques, and so they integrate it into their session. Or you may go in for some rehabilitation stuff with your physical therapist, and you may be doing some animal flow movements. Or you may go to a yoga class and your yoga teacher is teaching some there. Or maybe you're at home and you want to learn more about animal flow, so you purchase one of our DVDs. But the main thing that I want to communicate about that is that animal flow, we never want it to be about this thing to where once you do it, you only do animal flow. So it's not like, okay, I have to put down the weights and I have to just do animal flow. Or it's not like, okay, I have to set aside an hour a day to do animal flow. Really, the vision for animal flow was we wanted it to be the adhesive that holds all these other modalities together. So if you think about it this way, if you're already lifting a lot of weights, you probably could stand to be a little bit more mobile, flexible, and have a little bit more communication throughout your entire system. If you're already very bendy and flexible, so let's say you're a yoga practitioner, you could probably use more strength and power output, as well as more dynamic movement. So we kind of see that right in the middle, animal flow creates this bridge between different modalities. And so whether you decide to do it as an hour-long practice, you absolutely can, or you may decide to integrate it into other workouts. Especially, let's say, like, how do you work out, Andrew? Do you do more weight training?
Yeah, or more weight training, yeah.
Okay, so
weight
think about
training, yoga.
Awesome. Great. So you've already got two very extreme kind of ends of the spectrum, right? So if you're doing a lot of weight training, and more often than not, weight training is predominantly sagittal plane dominant. And if anyone's listening that doesn't know what sagittal plane dominant means, if you were walking in a straight line, your body's basically moving in sagittal planes. So your arms are swinging in, your legs are swinging in sagittal planes. And then those kind of planes of movement are used predominantly in most weight training exercises. So the only problem with that is that you're experiencing load, and whether that's the load that you're lifting in the gym or whether that's the load that your body is experiencing by your body fighting against gravity, you're experiencing load in sagittal plane. What we always want to do is we want to create a very nice balanced body that experiences load in all planes of motion and at all angles. And you'll see typically a lot of people get hurt or injured in rotation because they don't experience much rotation on a day-to-day basis. So just as an example, if you're doing a lot of barbell, let's say deadlifts or barbell squats, that's a lot of sagittal plane dominant movement. You could very much benefit, and it would behoove you to do some rotary work. So like to get down on the ground and do some animal flow movements to where your hands and feet are in contact with the ground and you're taking your entire system through different rotary moves. Now that creates balance. So now you're experiencing load variability, which is similar to if we talk about cross training. If you're always doing the exact same thing, you could benefit from doing some other modalities that help you to better accomplish whatever it is that you normally do on a day-to-day basis.
So what I'm getting from this is we got to move our body more in different ways and we can't just keep doing the same type of stationary type of exercises because we're not actually using all of the different movements that our body is capable of doing.
Exactly, man. Exactly. You hit it on the head. And when you think about it this way, the modern world is not conducive to being human. Because,
right. We wake up, we get in a car, we sit in a chair, and then watch TV, and we go to bed.
That's it, man. That's it. And you're spending your entire day basically in these seated postures. And then, the 1 hour, a couple of times a week that you do go to the gym, that's fantastic. We just want to make sure that you're varying your movement experience as much as possible. Katie Bowman wrote a really fantastic book called Move Your DNA, where she talks about experiencing a full spectrum of movement nutrition. And I always love that concept of movement nutrition. You wouldn't just eat the exact same thing every single day for every single meal. If you had the option, you would love to eat, multiple things that are nutrient dense, where you're getting all kinds of different macro and micronutrients. Similar with our movement. I mean, our bodies are so designed to move, and we're just utilizing such a small percentage of our overall movement capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like being able to move more, though, I think can also assist with if someone's feeling chronic pain or they're getting injured. I feel like this type of movement or animal flow or like even yoga or doing just different body movements could alleviate some of that pain. Because for me, yoga has alleviated a ton of chronic pain in my pelvis.
Man, 100%. And that's the thing. It doesn't have to be animal flow. It can be any movement practice. And the best, I always like to say, look, is the best movement practice animal flow? No, the best movement practice is the one that you enjoy and that you'll do. And so if that's yoga, great. If that's animal flow, great. It's whatever it is.
Dancing.
Yeah. It can be anything. But that's the thing. The reason why movement disciplines or movement practices are so potent to alleviating pain is because a lot of times pain is caused from repetitive dysfunction at a joint or articulation. So basically, if you're seated all day long in the same exact position, then now your entire system is becoming out of whack or out of balance. And so what do we need? What is the cure for that, or the antidote to that, is more movement and more ranges of motion and different angles, and in a way that's successful and pain-free. So I'm not saying like you would want to jump out of your couch and then go and become a contortionist first day.
Right.
But it has to be gradual, and it has to be over time, and you have to set yourself up to be successful in your experience. And going back to that whole thing of being a novice again and allowing yourself to go and be bad at different things and allow yourself to leave your ego at the door and just go in and experience something new, because in the beginning you're not going to be good, and you have to create space and allow yourself to experience that.
What would you say are the most common mistakes, like some do's and don'ts that people make when they try this?
A couple things. Let's see. So one, I'm a huge advocate of finding a good coach. So whether that's like going to a class or whether that's, doing a little bit of research and finding a good trainer or a good instructor, I'm a huge advocate of finding a good coach, because just like we mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation, someone can give you the structure. So someone can tell you, okay, these are, the 15 little pointers or little cues in learning this movement, versus you just looking on YouTube and trying to mimic it. Because if you're not learning the process, then you're just mimicking the movement. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be successful at it or that you have any understanding of it. So I'm a huge advocate of find a coach, find someone that understands this thing that you want to learn, and start from the very beginning. So start from the beginning, learn the process, and acknowledge every little step. So, start from the beginning. The other thing is, again, going back to what we mentioned earlier, the timeline thing. So what is your perception of what your timeline is? And I want to encourage and challenge everyone to, if you want to learn something new, drop any idea of how long it's going to take you to reach this thing. And yeah, sure, goals are important, especially, for some people, aesthetic goals or cosmetic goals are very important. But whenever we're talking about skill or a practice, there is no way that you can put a time limit on it. So find a coach, drop the ego, and allow yourself an open-ended relationship with how long you're going to give yourself to learn this thing. And the last thing is just acknowledge every step along the way. So every little, milestone that you make, it's so great to acknowledge that thing. Which brings me to one of my favorite things I always say with bodyweight training, which is one of the beautiful things about progressive bodyweight training is the thing that seemed absolutely unattainable to you at one point at the beginning, with enough consistency and practice, will eventually be your warm-up. And I always love the idea of that.
Yeah. You've seen those shirts on, like those CrossFit shirts. It's like, my warm-up is your workout. Yeah. What would you say are some of the daily habits that would make someone more successful at this?
Well, I can tell you, man, for me, I'm such a regimented person, and that I'm not saying that's good or bad or anything. It's just the way that I enjoy my life the most. And so I think it's one of those, for me, blocking out time, chunking time. those are so important. And my day from start to finish is just meticulously kind of planned out. And
walk us through with that. I'm always interested in people's schedules because it's within those schedules is the habits that lead to the results you're getting.
Okay, yeah.
What time do you wake up? What do you do for like a breakfast? Are you green smoothie? All that?
Yeah, so I wake up at 3 a.m. So I start my day at 3 a.m.
Right, let's not do this. You'll make us all feel bad. 3 a.m. All right, no, keep going. This is good.
Keep in mind, it's not the reason I wake up at 3 a.m. and this is after years and years of trial and error. That's when my body wants to start the day. And I've tried so many different things.
Wow.
Thinking that I had.
You're the first. Like when someone says 4, I'm like, man, this guy's on it. 3, I have not heard. This is good. Yeah. What do you do? What are you doing at 3? What's the first thing you do?
Yeah, so at 3 a.m. I get up, and the very first thing I do is I start moving first thing. And so the very first thing that I do, I wake up and I actually start with some breath work first. I'm really into breath work. Start with some breath work, and then I'll just go through some mobility stuff. And it's kind of a way to just, wake up all your joints, start lubricating your entire system, and just kind of seeing, all right, how do I feel from my workout yesterday? Or am I still feeling a little fatigued mentally, physically, whatever it is? So it's kind of like just a scan, like a self-check. Then I'll usually get up and I'll kind of do my first scan through anything that came through overnight, over the short night. So anything that came through as far as emails go, so I can start to kind of wrap my head around any big projects I have going on that day, and I can start to prioritize things. But I don't spend too much time there. I'll usually start with my workouts, and I'll start with my movement practice. Then I'll get.
Is this all indoor? Or do you go somewhere in the morning? Or I guess this is still at night.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Since it's so early, when I'm not on the road, I travel quite a bit for what I do. When I'm not on the road, I have the luxury of, in my house in Miami, I have on my rooftop, the rooftop is built as kind of like an occupancy space. So it's built to have people up there. And I have a big jungle gym that I've built on my roof. And so that's my actual gym, since I don't use weights that often. So I can just go up top and work out outside, but also since all of my stuff is predominantly body weight, I can also start inside as well. So I don't need to go to a gym to begin my workouts.
Wow. Okay. So it's still, what do you do? What's the rest of your day look like here?
Yeah.
You're waking up so early, and when do you stop working?
Yeah. So basically after I work out, I'll usually get in about 2 hours of social media. And that's, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or emails, all that stuff, anything that I need to schedule out for that week. So I'll block off about 2 hours there. And then I do intermittent fasting. So I usually don't start my feed window until about 10 a.m., sometimes 11 a.m. So
3 a.m. till 10 a.m., no food. You're just drinking, is there water, green smoothie?
Yeah, so just water, and I'll do plain black coffee. I'll usually do about 1 coffee every day. So, after I've done my work for the morning, I'll have breakfast. I usually have breakfast around 10 or 11 o'clock. And then directly after breakfast, I'll lay down for a nap, but it's more of kind of like a reflective meditation where I'll just kind of concentrate on my breath, reflect over the morning, reflect over the workout. If I do fall asleep, fantastic. If not, it's okay. Then I'll jump back up, and then basically the entire rest of the afternoon, so from about 11 or 12 on to about 3 or 5, that's when I kind of turn off all social media. I don't make myself available to anyone kind of in the social media networks. I'll only work with my team, so either my business partner, Karen, or I'll work with our other master instructor team or any of our other instructors. So then it's just completely on the business. So what do we need to do this week? We usually do any filming because I do a lot of tutorials and things like that. So I'll do a lot of filming during that block, and anything that we can do for the brands. That's usually between around 12 and 5. And then I eventually have dinner, and then my feeding window usually stops around 5 o'clock. So from 5 p.m. on, I'm fasting again. And after dinner, that's usually when I go in and I start refilling the other buckets, the creative buckets. So I play guitar and I like to sing. So that's usually what I'll do after dinner. And then I'll do a lot of writing or journaling, which I'm a huge fan of. Yeah. And then, usually catch up and do any socializing with friends or family. And then I go to bed super early, man. I go to bed.
I'm scared of what you're going to say here.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes 8:39.
Oh man, yeah, the sun's still up though, isn't it? In San Diego, the sun is. You're going to bed and there's still kids playing outside.
Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard. I'm like, wow.
Game of Thrones hasn't even started yet, and you're in bed.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. What's the benefits of fasting? I noticed that that's you're pretty on point with that. Why do you do that?
So intermittent fasting, and there's all kinds of different IF protocols. Usually, what you'll hear the benefits are a lot of the times you'll hear the hormone profile and then also the cellular cleansing. So the idea is that the way that your body produces hormones or your hormone profile is different when you're eating than when you're fasting or when you're fed versus fast. And so kind of what you're doing is you're allowing your system to stop and reboot. And so whenever you're not eating, your body will allow you to release human growth hormone. And then you also have the reparative, restorative side of that. And then you also have the cellular cleansing where basically your body gets to go in and clean house. And so since it's not working on the digestion side or the feed side or the eating and metabolizing, then it can actually go in and repair and work on the, taking out the garbage, replenishing everything and cleaning everything up. And then for me, the biggest part of it was really how easy it was, because coming from that old school style of like, oh, you have to eat every 3 hours. And I'm not saying that's wrong because, again, nutrition is so individual. It depends on the person and what protocol you're using. But I used to always do that, eat every 3 hours, and you're always kind of like worried about food. And it became a source of stress for me. And I found out that with IF or intermittent fasting, I could eat basically 2 giant meals, which I love to eat a lot in one sitting. I can eat 2 giant meals with kind of like a snack midday, and then I don't have to think about food again. And so for me, it works because of the convenience factor. And then also on a physical level, I can stay super lean and maintain the amount of muscle mass that I need to or want to. And so cosmetically, it works out perfectly for me as well. So, but that's the byproduct. I mean, that's secondary.
Wow. So what I'm getting from this is if your body's working on the digestive system, then it doesn't have the time and energy to work on the recovery and like healing of the body.
Right. And so it's kind of, you have the fight or flight and then the rest digest. So you have like the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. And we're always kind of going between those two. And that goes back to that whole concept of balance. The body, yes, can do these amazing things, but it also needs the time to rest and digest and repair. And so often we focus on the like, we need to destroy this thing and kick some ass and sweat. And I'm not saying that's not important, but also, are you putting as much energy into your rest as you are into your workouts? Because a lot of people forget or don't realize that we don't get the benefits of our training session while we're training. We get the benefits while we're actually allowing the body to adapt to the work that we did.
Yeah, I like this. And this is big. This is big for me too. And I have come from that background where you just never want to be hungry. You want to always eat every 3 to 4 hours. I remember at one point, me and my friends, this is years ago, but we were so on point with our diet as we thought at the time, where we would wake up like mid-morning, like at 3 o'clock, and then eat a meal and then go back to bed because you're supposed to keep having food in your body. Yeah. What I'm curious about, because you're going to bed so early and you're waking up so early and it seems like you're extremely productive throughout the day, that tells me that you're probably doing something right about your sleep. And what do you do to get good sleep? Like, how are you getting good sleep? Because for me, like if right now you're like, Andrew, I'm going to put a gun to your head and you have to go to bed by 9 tonight. Like, I wouldn't be able to do it. You would have to shoot me. Like, it wouldn't work. Like, I'd be in bed. I'd be like, no, I'm going to die. It just wouldn't work. I couldn't do it. So what are you doing to get good? Like, I'm talking like, I've heard all kinds of things with like lighting and like temperature and like obviously blacking out the room. But like, what are just some cool things that you do to get good sleep?
Yeah, man. I mean, honestly, I think it's so different for every single person. What I've seen to really work for me is I have to start winding down everything. And that's also going back to the food thing. Like, I would notice that if I would try to go to sleep too soon after eating, my body couldn't digest that well if I had just freshly eaten and then I was trying to sleep. So having at least 3 hours before your last meal to the time that you go to sleep usually seems to be a pretty nice rule of thumb. So there's allowing your body a little bit of time to digest before you actually try to sleep. That's a big one. Then starting to shut down anything that's going to be stimulating. So like on an electromagnetic field. So, computers, TVs, phones, anything like that's going to kind of continue to keep you in that fight or flight nervous system position. which is really tough, but it's like, even if you're going, all right, I'm going to go from my computer, which is right in my face, to maybe just watching a little bit of TV, which is further away, to then, okay, maybe I'm going to just have my phone for a little bit. And maybe that's not the best order, but basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to systematically decrease the amount of exposure that you're getting from these different sources, right? So your computer, your phone, your TV. And then best is to completely cut it off and, maybe start to make it part of your habits where you read for a half an hour before you go to bed. And for some people, that's like torture. And if that's the case, man, then get the most boring book that you can possibly find. That way you're like, all right, I've read like a page of this. I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah. So what I'm getting, and I think this is a huge one that just no one wants to hear, which is you're saying about 3 hours prior to passing and going to bed, reduce or eliminate electronic devices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's painful. It sucks how, what works is painful.
Yeah.
Because that's, everyone watches TV before they go to bed, or they're on their phone, on social media, or reading, interesting stuff, articles, or watching YouTube videos. So yeah, but I think it's got to be a habit that's built in.
Yeah, and let me rephrase that again. So I was saying, 3 hours from the time that you eat until you go to sleep. But as far as like the TV, computer, and all that stuff goes, I was just kind of saying minimize it as you get closer to bed. So, it's like, all right, if you're sitting at your computer, that's maximum exposure. If you're a couple feet away from the TV, then that's a little bit less, even though the TV is bigger. If you're right next to your phone's smaller, but you might have it right next to your face. So basically, and believe me, I'm not the expert in that. All I'm saying is that we want to start to minimize the exposure that you're getting to the electronics as you're getting closer to bedtime.
All right, got it. Still going to be tough, but yeah, on point there. I just want to ask a few last questions here in the knowledge round, and then we'll wrap up here. But Mike, are you ready for the knowledge round?
Yeah, sure, man.
All right.
Guys, after 200 plus interviews, traveling the world, attending dozens of personal growth events, I finally cracked the code on how to unleash the man within. This Wednesday, I'll be sharing my biggest insights on creating the life you want, and I'm doing an open QA with all of you. I'm doing this live event because it gives me a place to connect with the Knowledge for Men community directly versus listening to me. Now, you get to interact with me. Register for the next event by going to kfmlive.com. Last week's event was a massive success, so don't miss out. There's limited space available. Again, register for the next event by going to kfmlive.com. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
My first question for you, Mike, is what advice would you give to someone who's feeling pretty lost right now, kind of unsure of their purpose? Lack of direction.
Let's see, a couple things. I think one, going back to what we were talking about earlier, which is find a good coach. And what I mean by that is that coach may be someone who you consider to be a mentor, or maybe someone that you look up to. It may be finding a really great therapist. And I think so often we're so prone to take things on our own, and just opening up our box a little bit and saying, okay, maybe I need some help, or maybe I need some suggestions or a really good influence in my life. And I think there's so many people around you that are willing to do that and play that part. You just have to open up to them and reach out a little bit. So I think two things. One is finding a good mentor or therapist or someone that you look up to that's doing the thing that you may want to get into, even if it's not specific to what you're looking for. And then I think the other thing is going back to what I mentioned earlier, which is journaling. And that's such a big thing that I would recommend everyone doing, whether it's just little video journals or it's actually writing in a log. But we have so many thoughts that go through our head every single day. And sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees. Sometimes there's so many things going on, so much noise in our brains, that if we start writing down some of our true feelings and thoughts, then whenever we start looking back over the week, the month, whatever, we'll see things that start to pop up that may give us insight into what we're already looking for. So we may already know the answer. We just haven't allowed ourselves to explain it to ourselves yet. So find a good mentor and write down what you're feeling every single day.
Yeah, I like that. And Mike, what would you say, or let's say 2 or 3 of your most influential books that have helped you on your journey?
One of the big ones, I mentioned that earlier, which was Move Your DNA by Katie Bowman. That's a huge one. I love Move Your DNA by Katie Bowman. Another one is Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, which was a book by Paul Chek. And it's just a fantastic book that gives, at the time that he released it, it was way, way ahead of its time. And a lot of the things that he had kind of mentioned in those books are now considered to be kind of common knowledge. But that's a really great one. Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Move Your DNA. And then a really kind of fun one that I think most people would get a kick out of, which a friend gave to me recently, is called The Tao of Poo.
I've heard of that. What is that? What's that about? I've heard of that. I think it might be on my wish list.
Yeah, so that's, and they use Winnie the Pooh. They actually use Winnie the Pooh in the story. And it's a fun little read for anyone that's like kind of wanting to get into Taoism. It's got some very cool kind of stories and some really nice little analogies, if that's kind of, if you're looking to get in a little bit more mental clarity, peace of mind, kind of towards enlightenment, that whole realm.
Got it. Yeah, so it's kind of like a comic or like an easy, fun story that's full of life lessons.
You got it.
Yeah. All right, here. And
so it's the Taoist, kind of approach.
Yeah, I like that. And so we'll wrap up here. What's exciting you today? Like, what's getting you out of bed in the morning? What's exciting you in this year?
We're about to do something very cool, which is at the end of this year, actually in September, we have these little Animal Flow communities all over the world where there's other pockets of instructors that have taken the workshops and are teaching. And so what I'm going to do, my business partner and I, is we're going to actually leave Miami and we're going to get rid of our house here. And we're going to spend about a month to 2 months in each region that we have a community in. And really, we're just going to kind of offer our time, nurture the brands, kind of give energy to the communities, and we'll literally be homeless for the next, year or two. With the yeah.
This sounds awesome. When did you guys plan this idea, and how excited are you?
Well, the question kind of came up internally, or, to myself, which was, what would happen if you were to give up everything in order to better serve your community? And what I imagine will be everything. I imagine that the experience will be so rich. It'll just be so much more valuable than any physical possessions that I have here in Miami. So that was kind of the concept. And then we just started putting some things into place and making everything work and making it happen. And dude, I'm so excited. I'm so 100% excited because I get to spend time with the people that love to move and love to learn. And I get to just offer my time and be able to say, hey, look, guys, I'm going to be in the local park from noon to 5 o'clock Monday through Friday. If you want to come work on bodyweight training, you want to come work on Animal Flow, you want to come and just hang out, we can do that. So it's literally just the ability to just offer and donate time to help experience this movement with other people.
Wow. How excited are you? This sounds like a really fun adventure that you're about to go on. How many countries have you mapped out?
Well, on the initial first kind of 6 to 8 months, we'll be in about 8 different countries.
How many cities is that?
Well, it kind of depends on, honestly, that's the big thing, Andrew, is we're just kind of, we have a general idea, but if we end up in one place, we might be like, all right, we're going to stick around here a little bit longer or whatever. But it's going to start off with Costa Rica, then a trip through our different spots in Europe. So we'll be in Germany and Amsterdam, UK, Dublin. Then we'll be in Bali for about a month. We'll be in New Zealand for about a month. And we'll go to Sydney, Australia for about 4 to 6 weeks. And then we'll be in Spain. And then we'll spend some time in Amsterdam. So it's not bad places.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing some fun stuff. This is great. I'm glad you shared that here at the end. So for all the listeners, you can check out Mike Fitch and more about his work at globalbodyweighttraining.com and also animalflow.com. And then if you just put all that stuff in Google, his social media profiles pop up too. Anything else you'd like to share here?
No, man, just thanks for the opportunity. Great speaking with you. And yeah, man, thanks for your time.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks so much for a wealth of knowledge here on the show. It's been very fun just chatting about mastery, chatting about movement, and your morning and your daily routine, which is, it's quite impressive. All right.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.